Young lady, are you okay?
He's looking at me. He has no face. His face is gone.
From eerie disappearances to baffling deaths, have you ever wondered about the chilling mysteries behind some of the world's most haunting murder cases?
They all seem to follow a pattern.
Brace yourself as we explore the eerie encounters tied to these cold cases. 1. Elisa Lam. On January 31st, 2013, a 21-year-old Canadian student checked into LA's notorious Cecil Hotel, only to vanish into thin air. The last time anyone saw her was on some strange elevator security cam footage. She was hitting buttons like a DJ, peeking around and ducking from something that wasn't even there. Fast forward to February 19th, and after a nerve-wracking search, the grim discovery dropped. Elisa's body was found in a hotel water tank. Guests had been freaked out over the water's nasty taste, and that led to the find. Climbing up to those tanks wasn't a walk in the park either. It meant dodging alarms and scrambling up ladders that weren't exactly user-friendly. And get this, she was found without her clothes, floating around in the water next to her. The autopsy ruled it an accidental drowning, with bipolar disorder tagged in, but there were no bruises or scrapes to give us any real clues. But here's where things spin out. The Cecil Hotel wasn't just some rundown joint. It had a rap sheet with a backlog of deaths and violent incidents that could fill a novel, stirring up all those ghost hunters and mystery chasers. To this day, Elisa's story has become a pet project for internet detectives and ghost story junkies, all betting on whether some spooky business took her out. Whatever the case, this chilling episode kept the Cecil Hotel in the spooky spotlight, and Elisa Lam's unsettling farewell keeps us all guessing. Like and subscribe right now, and you'll have amazing luck for the rest of the week. 2. The death of Patrick Harbour. This dark tale kicked off when some jogger stumbled across a headless and limbless torso bobbing in the River Thames by Tower Bridge. The scene was straight out of a horror flick. The kid, dubbed Adam by the London detectives scrambling for clues, was just a little guy, around 5 or 6 years old, decked out in neon orange shorts. Turns out, he'd been hauled all the way from Benin City, Nigeria, possibly for some twisted ritual sacrifice. Forensic hotshots pieced together that Adam might actually be Patrick Harbour, a kid likely smuggled into the UK under grim circumstances. Despite their high-tech bone tests and digging into his last meal, stuff loaded with African ritual herbs, this case was a tough nut to crack. In 2013, some lady in Nigeria, Joyce Osagide, piped up, saying she looked after the boy in Germany before some smuggler named Kingsley Oho got his hands on him. But guess what? Her story was all over the place, and the cops couldn't bank on it. Fast forward, and this mess is still a mystery. Even with a $50,000 reward dangling and Nelson Mandela himself making a plea, nobody's cracked it. No justice for Patrick, just a bunch of dead ends and a chilling reminder of how nasty human trafficking can be. 3. Dyatlov Pass Incident. In early February 1959, 9 tough-as-nails hikers, led by the 23-year-old boss man Igor Dyatlov, set out to conquer the beastly Ural Mountains in Soviet Russia. They were geared up to face off with Mother Nature's worst, but bam! On February 1st, something freaky went down. Fast forward to February 26. Their tent was found looking like a horror movie set, slashed open from the inside, like they all just bolted in sheer panic. The real kicker? These guys had dashed into sub-zero hell half-dressed, some even barefoot. Over the next few weeks, the plot thickened as their bodies turned up, scattered around the snowy death zone. The first group, including the head honcho Dyatlov, had frozen to death. 4 of them looked like they'd gone 10 rounds with a beast. Their injuries so severe, you'd think they'd crashed a car, not just taken a chilly stroll. Then there was Lyudmila Dubinina, found without her tongue and eyes. Creepy, right? Theories flew. Top-secret military drills, ghostly shenanigans, or even ETs dropping by. Some whispered about a Yeti getting a little too close. What's more, their threads had some weird radiation vibe, fueling all sorts of wild guesses about government cover-ups or mad science experiments. Despite the brains thrown at this mystery, even busting it open again in 2019, nobody's cracked it. So, what smoked these hikers in such a bizarre, brutal way? Guess that's one for the books. 4. Rachel Runyon. This creepy tale of Rachel Runyon still sends shivers down the spine. Back in the hot summer of 1982, that little 3-year-old was snatched right from her playground in Sunset, Utah, just a stone's throw from her house. Her brothers saw it all go down. A guy sweet-talked her with candy before whisking her away. No cameras caught the weirdo, just a sketch based on what her brothers could piece together. Fast forward 3 weeks, and some poor family stumbled upon her remains in a creek in Morgan County, a whopping 50 miles from the snatch site. Her hands were tied up, her body in bad shape. So bad, the docs couldn't even call the cause of death, though they guessed asphyxiation. And get this, her clothes were gone, but some child's underwear was lying around, painting a grim picture. Then came the spooky stuff. Rachel's dad found a black rose on her grave. Not once, but twice. No explanation, just eerie. And some nutjob left a message in a laundromat, bragging about the crime with some freaky devil symbols to boot. Gives you the creeps, right? Years have rolled by, and every lead seemed to hit a dead end until 2020, when the cops in Sunset dropped a bomb. They might have a hot lead on some local who'd been flying under the radar. Rachel's story rattled everyone so much that it sparked the Rachel Alert, setting the stage for the Amber Alert system to keep other kids safe. 40 years later, the mystery of what happened to that little girl in the playground still haunts Utah, leaving everyone wondering who's really behind this chilling case. 5. Sophie Toscan du Plantier. This spine-chilling mystery of Sophie Toscan du Plantier's 1996 murder still haunts Ireland, jam-packed with creepy details that have folks whispering about ghosts and ghouls. This 39-year-old French TV producer was found brutally offed near her holiday spot in West Cork on December 23, 1996. Her battered body was sprawled with severe head injuries and scratches like she dashed through thorny briars trying to dodge her attacker. No signs of assault, yet the brutality was off the charts, leaving everyone stumped with 0 hot suspects. The eerie peace of her remote cottage, tucked in a barely there village, got people buzzing. Maybe this wasn't just human work. Cue Ian Bailey, the local newsman with fresh cuts and scrapes, who said he got them decking the halls with Christmas cheer. But the lab geeks found zip-tying him to the murder scene, and though a French court threw the book at him in 2019, he's out there, still howling at the moon and denying everything. The area's spooky vibes don't help. Legends and ghost tales swirl around her cottage, and while they don't pin down a murderer, they sure thicken the plot. Decades on, and it's still a cold case. The locals, investigators, and Sophie's kin are on edge, hunting for the truth behind this horrifying riddle. 6. The Jameson family. The Jameson family's disappearance is straight out of a horror movie. Spooky, unsolved, and wrapped in paranormal whispers. Back in October 2009, Bobby, Sherilyn, and their little one, Madison, just 6, vanished while checking out some property out in Red Oak, Oklahoma. Their ride got found ditched with a hefty $32,000 cash stash. Their IDs, wallets, and their poor family dog barely hanging on but alive. Fast forward to 2013, and some hikers stumbled upon their bones, chilling 3 miles from their truck. The bodies were too gone to figure out what offed them, wrapping this whole scene in more mystery. Things got extra creepy when footage showed the family loading up their truck like they were under some spell, moving all trance-like, which got people jabbering about ghosts or some druggy haze. Though the cops didn't find squat for drugs, Sherilyn was all about their place being haunted, and even their pastor was on about them battling demons or something, thinking their house had ghostly squatters. Then, throw in Sherilyn's mom, claiming the family was marked by some local cult, adding a whole new layer of freaky to the saga. She was convinced her kin were on some cult's hit list right in the heart of occult central Oklahoma. No solid proof of cult ties turned up, but it's one more twist in this bizarre ride that's got everyone talking. 7. The Hinterkaifeck Murders. In 1922, on a remote farm in Bavaria, Germany, the Gruber family and their new maid were taken out with a mattock. The victims, Andreas Gruber, his wife Cecilia, their daughter Victoria, her 2 kids, little Cecilia and Joseph, and the maid, Maria Baumgartner. Their bodies weren't found for days, all stashed under hay and sheets in the farmhouse and barn. But before all this went down, Andreas was freaking out over footsteps in the attic and weird tracks in the snow that came up to the house but didn't lead back. He even found a newspaper that no one in the house read and realized one of their house keys was missing. Like something out of a horror movie, right? Even spookier, the maid before Maria bolted, swearing the place was haunted because she kept hearing footsteps and feeling like someone was always there. After the slaughter, signs pointed to the culprit hanging around for a few days, taking care of the animals and eating the family's grub. Smoke was still puffing out of the chimney, as seen by the neighbors. Despite the cops dragging every possible suspect through the mud, including Victoria's supposed-to-be-dead husband, nobody got pinned for the crime. The savage nature of the murders mixed with all that paranormal jazz has some folks believing that something supernatural was stirring up trouble at that farm. 8. The Texarkana Moonlight Murders. Back in the spring of 1946, the little town of Texarkana, straddling the line between Texas and Arkansas, got rocked by a series of chilling attacks. They call the madman behind it All the Phantom. Over just 10 weeks, this shadowy figure threw down some serious horror, attacking 8 folks, offing 5, and leaving 3 more in rough shape. The madness kicked off on February 22, 1946, when Jimmy Hollis and Mary Jean Larrey got roughed up badly while parked on some lonely road. Both lived to tell the tale, but their messed up descriptions of the guy, Jimmy's saying he was white, Mary swearing he was black, left the cops scratching their heads. Next up, on March 24th, Richard Griffin and Pollyann Moore turned up dead in their ride, shot down. Fast forward a month, and after a night out, Paul Martin and Betty Jo Booker find themselves in the Phantom's crosshairs. Betty's body ended up 2 miles away from Paul's, and it's clear this menace was getting bolder. The grand finale, May 3rd, Virgil and Katie Starks' peaceful night at home got blown apart. Virgil was out for the count right away, but Katie, despite being all shot up, managed to break away. Cops, along with Texas Rangers and FBI agents, grilled over 400 suspects. One prime suspect, UL Swinney, got nabbed for swiping cars, and his wife's shaky story sort of linked him to the chaos. But with nothing concrete, they couldn't pin the crimes on him. Swinney slipped through the cracks and checked out in '94, leaving this mess wide open. To this day, the true face behind the Phantom is a big fat question mark. Despite throwing a ton of muscle into the investigation, this bad boy's still out there, just a ghost story that keeps Texarkana on edge. 9. Zodiac Boogeyman. This crazy guy, known as the Zodiac, has been wreaking havoc across Northern California, stirring up major trouble between 1968 and 1969. He's infamous for targeting at least 5 people, snuffing them out in cold blood. His first known spree hit hard on December 20th, 1968, when he offed high school sweethearts David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen in Benicia, California. They were just chilling in their car when Zodiac decided to end their night and lives with a bang. The Zodiac had a thing for young couples parked in secluded spots, like that time on July 4th, 1969, when he ambushed Michael Mageau and Darlene Ferran in Vallejo. Mageau got lucky. He lived. Ferran, not so much. Fast forward to September 27, 1969, at Lake Berryessa. Zodiac donned a creepy hooded costume and attacked Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard. Hartnell survived the stabbing ordeal, but Shepard was less fortunate, succumbing to her injuries 2 days later. Zodiac even had the guts to etch his creepy symbol, a circle crossed by a line, right on Hartnell's car door, bragging about his past chaos. What really twisted the public's mind was Zodiac's love for the limelight. Starting in 1969, he sent a bunch of letters to local newspapers, taunting the cops and daring the public to crack his codes that he claimed would unveil his identity. One of his letters started with, "This is the Zodiac speaking," loaded with details only the culprit would know. Zodiac boasted about taking out 37 lives, but cops have only tied him to 5 for sure. Despite years of digging and a lineup of suspects, his true face is still a mystery. The last letter he fired off came in 1974, leaving his cryptic messages and unsolved ciphers to haunt investigators to this day. 10. The Overtown Bridge Dog Deaths. This Overtown Bridge in West Dunbartonshire, Scotland, freaks everyone out with its strange rep as the dog suicide bridge. Since the 50s, too many pooches, estimated between 50 and 300, have been leaping right off this 50-foot-high horror show, crashing down to the rocks. Even weirder, some dogs that survive their first jump are hell-bent on a second go. Spooky stuff. Now some folks reckon it's the ghostly White Lady of Overtown, old Grace White from back when, messing with the dogs' heads, luring them to jump. Then there's that grim tale from 1994, when a guy chucked his own kid off the bridge. But hold up, the science crew, like animal behaviorist Dr. David Sands, are sniffing out different clues. They think the dogs are just nosing out wild scents, like mink or squirrels, getting so pumped they forget there's a drop. Plus, the bridge's tricky walls might look like solid ground to a hyped-up hound. Despite all the brains thrown at this, including the Scottish SPCA and local bigwigs, nobody's cracked it yet. If you're walking your dog there, you'd better keep that leash tight. Trust me, you don't want your fur buddy diving off that bridge. 11. The Thornton Family Poltergeist. This tale kicks off in the 1970s, when one ordinary family in Thornton Heath got the shock of their lives. Imagine chilling in your house when suddenly your radio flips on, blaring some foreign chatter. That was just the start of nearly 4 wild years of paranormal chaos that this family had to deal with. Things in the house started flying around like nobody's business, and the noises, constant crashes, banging through the place. Come Christmas 1972, it was total mayhem. an ornament launched itself right at the dad's head, and their Christmas tree started shaking all on its own like it was possessed. Then there's the kid who woke up to find some old guy in vintage gear staring him down, only to have the guy pull a disappearing act the moment he moved. The family was desperate, calling in a priest to bless the house, but no dice. The spooks stuck around. They even brought in a medium who dropped the bomb. The place was haunted by a farmer named Chatterton from way back in the 18th century. This Chatterton guy and his wife, who liked to show up as a gray-haired lady and then vanish, were not fans of the family squatting on what they considered their turf. The haunting got so bad, it wasn't just the family getting terrorized, friends felt the heat too. Eventually, the family had enough and bailed, and just like that, all that paranormal drama stopped. Nothing since then. Talk about a haunting that went out as suddenly as it appeared, leaving a freaky piece of London's ghostly lore. 12. The murder of the Grimes sisters. In 1956, these two sisters, just 15 and 12, headed out to catch an Elvis flick, Love Me Tender, at the Brighton Theatre. They vanished into thin air around 9:30 p.m., last spotted grabbing snacks during the show. Their mum, Loretta, freaked out when they didn't show up by midnight, ringing up the cops after 2 a.m. Despite a massive search with cops and volunteers crawling all over, not a single solid clue pops up. Then folks started saying they spotted the girls from Chicago all the way down to Tennessee, sparking rumors they ditched town to chase Elvis, claiming their mums slammed hard. Fast forward to January 22, 1957, when Leonard Prescott stumbled upon a nightmare on German Church Road in Willow Springs. Barbara and Patricia were found dead, stark naked, and covered partly by snow. The scene was brutal. Bruises and puncture wounds all over, but it's murky what actually did them in. The call was death by shock and exposure, but that didn't sit right, given the creepy vibes and their injuries. Cops haul in some suspects, even squeezing a confession out of Edward Bedwell before he backtracks, yelling his arm was twisted to confess. No one's ever pinned down for the crime, leaving it a mystery to this day. Loretta Grimes passed in 1989, never getting the closure she deserved. 13. Ted Bundy's haunted locations. Ted Bundy really left his mark all over, and not in a good way. At the top of the spooky list is the Chi Omega sorority house in Tallahassee, Florida. This is where Bundy went on a rampage in 1978, attacking 4 women and ending 2 lives. Now, people say the place is haunted, with whispers about the spirits of his victims sticking around, maybe trying to save others from the same fate. Next up, Florida State Prison, the end of the line for Bundy, where he met his fate in the electric chair in 1989. The guards there get the heebie-jeebies big time, swearing they've seen Bundy's ghost chilling in the chair with a smirk that says, "Gotcha." Some even hear him tossing around taunts like, "I beat all of you, didn't I?" from his old cell. It's gotten so bad that some guards won't go near the death chamber without backup. Then there's Utah. Ever heard of Ted Bundy's cave in American Fork Canyon? It's a real debate whether Bundy hid out there, but it's creepy all the same, since they found one of his victims' bodies, Laura Amy, nearby. That spot's a magnet for ghost hunters and some dark, weird rituals. And we can't forget Washington State, Bundy's old hunting grounds. Places like Taylor Mountain, where they found several of his victims, just ooze bad vibes. People talk about a heavy, unnerving feel anytime they trek out there. Yeah, Bundy's gone, but it seems like he's still messing with folks from beyond, turning all these spots into Ghost Central. Which case gave you the most chills? Have you ever experienced anything unexplainable or eerie in your own life? Let me know in the comments below.